Hello, I'm John Waters. You may know me better as the Puke King. I've directed countless films. Mondo Trasho, Multiple Maniacs, Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, Desperate Living, Polyester ad nauseum. I've often said that if someone vomits while watching one of my films, it's like getting a standing ovation. If that sums up your attitude when you buy a movie ticket, I have a film series for you. It's called Shock Value, and it's coming soon to this theater. It includes my own celluloid atrocities and works by the king of gore, Herschel Gordon-Lewis, and King Lear himself, Russ Meyer. Just think, scenes of tongues being ripped out, women with breasts bigger than their heads, coprophagia, blasphemy, transvesticism, cannibalism, masturbation, homosexual behavior, castration, artificial insemination, Manson worship, and foot fetishism. You will see films that even drive-ins won't show. Films so depraved, so odious that they are impossible to defend. Movies that can cause crime, immoral behavior, cancer, and possibly insanity. Shock Value, coming soon to this theater. Rated R for repulsive.
Thank you for tuning in to a Very Suspect podcast. Here's Lewis and Glenn.
Welcome back to a Very Suspect podcast for our look into the Pope of Trash, John Waters. Yep, so you probably noticed that whenever we have multi-part episodes, we just kind of like end it. And that's because we just record everything all at once. We have no idea whether it's going to be one episode or more. We should probably start to assume it's going to be a couple because we just go on and we have tangents that we go into and we get sidetracked, and we're going to be starting that very soon. But just before that, I wanted to say thanks very much for listening to our little show. It's really taking off. We really like doing it, and there is a Patreon page that you can kind of throw a couple of bucks our way to just pay for uploading it online. And I wanted to thank Patrick Brennan for being our newest Patreon member. Thanks a lot, Patrick. You're the best. Patrick has a podcast as well, and I'll be putting a link to it on our show notes. If you like the show, tell people about it, share it. But Waters is not just about movies. He's been busy in all kinds of different things.
Yeah,
he appears in all kinds of stuff. One of my favorite things is that no smoking in the theater ad, which is so hilarious.
Hello, I'm John Waters, and I'm supposed to announce there is no smoking in this theater, which I think is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard of in my life. How can anyone sit through a length of a film, and especially a European film, and not have a cigarette? But don't you wish you had one right now? And I'm telling you that smoke anyway. It gives ushers jobs, and if people didn't smoke, there would be no employment for the youth of today. So once again, no smoking in this theater.
Well, like you said, he's been incorporated into The Simpsons and all sorts of things in the past, right?
Look, a TV guide owned by Jackie O.
Oh, you should see the crossword puzzle. She thought that Mindy lived with Mark.
Give her a break. Her husband was killed.
Oh, I know. Wasn't that awful? Hi, I'm John. Can I help you with anything?
So, he's about as mainstream as he's ever going to be, right?
I think so, because he's written quite a few books, too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, maybe not...
they're not going to be bestsellers.
No,
they're going to do okay for that kind of book.
Yeah, and it's not really a like a novel. They're not narrative books. They're more like
essays.
On whatever it is that he's.
All his books are great. I mean, he writes as well as he writes essays as well as he writes scripts. He's just as good at that kind of thing. And he's a great speaker, too, obviously.
Yeah, he's done tours, right?
Many tours.
His Filthy World.
Christmas shows. This goes back a long period of time. He's been doing readings since the 80s.
Since the 80s?
Since the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, you can go back to the late 80s and he would appear at autograph session things and do readings from some of his, because those original books were out at that point in time. Shock Value was out in the early 80s.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And then the second one, Crackpot, came out in the later 80s. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he's been doing that kind of stuff for quite a while. I mean, I feel like the first time I saw him read somewhere was the late 80s in Toronto. Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely, and he's done it before I ever saw him. Because I think he did a reading one time, maybe for the St. Rosedale Library. I think he did an autograph session and a reading there. And that had to be in the mid-'80s, maybe early mid-'80s.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, he's been in town so many times over the years, right, doing that kind of thing. And yeah, he's a great reader. He's, there's even books on tape of some of his things.
Read by him?
Yeah. I have, I think it's Shock Value. Yeah, as on cassette of him reading his own stuff.
Because he has such a distinctive, really funny voice. His delivery is great. Like, he could easily have been a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love listening to him.
Have you not gone to see him ever do readings?
No, never
okay.
have.
No. I've gone a few times over the
I watched
years.
This Filthy World.
Yeah.
Because it came out on DVD and presumably Blu-ray, but I don't know that for sure.
He brought that show to Toronto. It was at the Toronto Underground Cinema. That was around that time period. It wasn't the exact same show because he'd modify things and add different things in, but it was basically the same idea, that tour. But he's done a lot of Christmas tours too. Every year he'll go out and do Christmas shows.
Yeah, he's big time into Christmas, isn't he?
Yeah. He's infamous for sending Christmas cards to people. Like he makes Christmas cards. He'll make a Christmas card every year and send to a group of friends, apparently. I think it was reading a Mink Stoll interview and she talks about all the Christmas cards she has from John over the years. But he would take a photo of something or whatever, and that would be the Christmas card, and everyone would get it. It would be like he has a electric chair in his living room.
Right.
And it's a real electric chair, and he would decorate it up Christmassy, and then that would be the Christmas card for 1 year or whatever. Just like things like that. That's his kind of thing.
And for a while, I don't know if this is still true, but his favorite Christmas movie wasn't it like Christmas Evil or?
Yes.
It was Christmas Evil.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Yeah, he does a commentary on that for the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray release.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Have you listened to it?
Yeah.
And?
It's what you'd expect from him. He talks about it. As the movie plays, he just goes on about his favorite scenes, and he loves like punish, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, he talks a lot about how he thinks that there's other great Christmas movies in his estimation as well, including other horror ones too. But he said that's his fave of that genre of Christmas.
I told you he'd be happy that we remembered him.
This Christmas, Santa's going to make everyone happy. The grown-ups and the kids. Christmas Evil. The non-believers.
Watch out!
And the screamers. And this Christmas, you better believe in Santa, or he'll slay you.
Merry Christmas, Frank.
I think he just likes Christmas stuff in general, so... Yeah, which is interesting. Not everybody feels that way, obviously.
No, I guess not.
Especially for somebody. I mean, obviously, he doesn't look at Christmas as religious holiday. He just looks at Christmas as a festive occasion.
I think most people don't at this point.
Yeah, at this point, I know.
It's just, it's taken on its own personality for. I would say for the majority of people, anyway.
Yeah.
Christmas is about Santa Claus.
Sure.
And
I don't know if he's as hard on religion now as he was when he was younger. I don't know if
everybody mellows out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if his take on it would be as extreme as it would have been during Multiple Maniacs era or whatever. But who knows? Maybe it is. Some people don't lessen on some things. They probably,
Maybe. Yeah.
He could have a lot of issues with the church in general.
That's true.
He was also raised Catholic, so he's probably,
Was he?
Yeah, he talks about that a lot, too. Because that just makes everything dirtier and more fun in the long run, he said. So everything that he was doing that he knew he wasn't supposed to be doing, according to the Catholic Church back then, was just all the more sweeter. Like when he was like running out to like theaters in Baltimore to see art films, which were basically softcore kind of things, right, from Europe. And he was like, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to do this. The Catholic Church is really against us. And that's what makes it all the better, right? So,
sweeter.
Yeah,
Oh,
of course,
sweeter.
of course. It definitely would, right?
That's true.
It makes sense. But yeah, no, Waters has written a lot about that kind of stuff, like sexploitation films, seeing that in Baltimore in the 60s. And he didn't care. I mean, it didn't matter if these films were aimed at a straight audience and everything. He said he could still get a kick out of, like, some of the luridness of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it wasn't sexually his thing, he was still like, yeah, it's just sleazy and it's trashy, and he could appreciate that. So
it's funny that his movies are now studied. And, the subtext is looked into and all of this stuff.
Sure.
I mean, he obviously had subtext going on when he's writing things, because he was trying to be as subversive as possible.
Sure.
And, Pink Flamingos is one of the instrumental movies in the whole creation of midnight cinema.
Sure. That and
not
El Topo and a few other films at the beginning.
Eraserhead. But Eraserhead came way later.
Yeah.
But, where, these movies...
El Topo and Pink Flamingos were some of the earliest ones to start that whole sort of thing in New York at that time period. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, other films would get added to it as they came out, like Rocky Horror and Eraserhead and everything else.
But those two, like, I can see that because they're really hard to place.
Yeah, they were first wave, and then shortly after that would have been The Harder They Come, which also got lumped into that and got a lot of midnight screenings.
That's true.
So, yeah. Because, they were just oddball movies. I mean, if you think about The Harder They Come, too, most people in North America would not have been, exposed to that kind of thing. Jamaica, that time period, and this whole scene, it was very foreign at the time to people. And I think that's why those movies, probably the same with El Topo. People probably couldn't make any sense out of El Topo. You really still can't make any sense of El Topo.
Well,
although you can make more sense of it than you can the Holy Mountain. Holy Mountain is even hard to make sense out of.
I don't know. I think they're both pretty strong.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think they're
we'll
strongest
talk about
narratives?
That at some point. Yeah. No, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. I just don't know if it makes much sense.
Yeah. But it's funny, like when you think about midnight movies and Pink Flamingos distinguishes itself because it's pretty much the only comedy among all of those cult movies.
David Lynch would say Eraserhead's a comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that too. It's like, a sitcom from hell type of thing.
Rocky Horror obviously was a comedy. It was parodying things as well.
But I mean, among so many of them, it really...
It's the most outlandish of the comedies.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, Rocky Horror is to a much milder degree because of the transvestite.
It's more specifically parodying certain things, though, too, like the whole RKO kind of movie type thing. Yeah.
And Pink Flamingos isn't really parodying anything.
No,
it's more of a commentary on moral values. And...
Yeah, very different kind of movie than those other ones. But yeah, it was the right kind of movie for that time period, for that kind of audience that wanted to see a ridiculously over-the-top movie while they were baked.
True.
That's what they did.
And it is hilarious. But Polyester, I think, is funniest movie, I think, personally.
Yeah.
But what's your favorite one?
I'm torn. I'm sorry.
Or do you have one?
I don't even know if I have one. I mean, as when it comes to the earlier work, I don't even know if it is Pink Flamingos for me.
Oh, no?
No, I don't think so. I mean, in a lot of ways, I've always liked Female Trouble more.
Oh, yeah, Female Trouble is a lot of fun. We didn't even talk about Female Trouble.
I don't think we did talk about Female Trouble. And Desperate Living, I like equally as much. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I mean... I like all his movies in the sense that there's nothing I dislike of his movies, of his filmography. I even ones that I'm not totally in love with, like, say, Pecker, I still enjoy it. There's still stuff in there that I really enjoy. It's just, it's not to the level of the better films, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. But then again, I really enjoyed Dirty Shame. Dirty Shame was like I said, him going back to sort of the sleazier kind of content of the earlier years.
Hi. I'm Mama Bear. You met my husband?
No, I haven't.
I'm Papa Bear. And this is our cub, Baby Bear. Grrr. Grrr.
I'm Vaughn. Welcome to the Hartford Road area.
When we take over, it's gonna be a bear quake. Hug me with a big bear hug.
No, they're not. Look, I'm not a prude. I'm married to an Italian, but I am disgusted. I live near what they call the Bear House. Last night, hairy, overweight men who call themselves bears were having sex outside the house. My children heard them. Mommy, what's that noise? They actually asked me. I raced outside, clapping my hands loudly, and I yelled, "No blowjobs!" And they just laughed. Some of them even growled at me.
A little more of a gloss to it, of course, because, he has a much bigger budget by that point, so the films look better. I mean, they don't look great by Hollywood standards still, even though they were made, and that was made in the more recent times. He doesn't have tons and tons of cash to throw around at these things. And that movie is quite ambitious. There's a lot of interesting, bizarre stuff going on in that movie visually. Mm-hmm. So, but you should see it sometime.
Yeah, I should.
It's worth seeing.
It's funny how with Serial Mom could be seen as a pretty straightforward story.
Sure.
And it could be seen as, a thriller comedy.
Sure.
But it's funny that he'll even take what seems like a straightforward narrative and just infuse it with so much craziness.
Well, in a lot of ways, he said that was kind of his tribute to Herschel Gordon Lewis. That he...
Which? Serial Mom?
Really? That the reason why he put like some cheesy gore scenes in that movie occasionally when she was like killing somebody and you see a intestine come on her. He said that was his tribute to Herschel's low-budget version of that kind of thing, too. That he wanted to do something like that. He knew he wasn't going to make a movie like Blood Feast or 2000 Maniacs or Wizard of Gore, but he could at least parody that in some way as a tribute to Herschel. He's talked about that before in interviews about the movie. And
I hadn't heard that at all.
Yeah, I think actually, if I'm correct now, even on the DVD of that, there's a little tribute to Herschel Gordon Lewis as a bonus feature that might even have an interview with Herschel and Dave Friedman.
Really?
That he did, where he talks about that and everything too. I think, because he remembers seeing those movies. He went to see Blood Feast, he said, first run and everything. And so he always wanted to have something like that. And he's had it through the years in his movies. You go back to some of those early films, and there is gore, everything too. So I think he was always throwing that in. But Serial Mom in particular, this was a bigger budget film, and he still wanted to have a little bit of that in there. Like, this is my tribute to what those guys were doing,
Yeah.
Did the system work? Do you think it worked? Hey, excuse me, the right's been sold.
We did it. We set her free. I knew she was innocent right from the beginning.
You can't wear white shoes after Labor Day.
That's not true anymore.
Yes, it is. Didn't your mother ever tell you? Now you know.
No. Please. Fashion has changed.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah. I still watch
with his own spin on it.
I still marvel at her performance and that.
Yeah,
you get a sense that that's what she's like.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
I mean, the dialogue of hers is pretty filthy.
Yeah, well, God, I think it was sometime in the early 90s, right around that time of that movie, and he came to town to do a reading of just one of his speaking engagements, and he was on stage doing his thing, and a voice from the crowd said, "Hey, John." And it was Kathleen Turner. She was in town doing something else, and he didn't know she was there. And then she kind of walked up and everything too. And he was like, wow, it's like, because you could tell that voice for one thing. He had just worked with her, and all of a sudden he hears her raspy voice. It wouldn't have been "Hey, John." It would be more like "Hey, John." She was pretty rough voice.
Yeah, her voice has gotten rougher and rougher over the years.
Yeah. And this was right after Serial Mom, I think. Yeah, somewhere around that time period. And that was pretty funny. But she's great in that movie. I mean,
she really is.
But I know you haven't seen it, but that's true of, like, Melanie Griffith is also a lot of fun in Cecil B. Demented. It's a really over-the-top performance, too. That movie's got a bunch of over-the-top performances in it, too. Michael Shannon, one of his first works, is in that. And Alicia Witt is really great in that, too. She's kind of like, almost like the Tracy Lords kind of role again now for that movie. She's like a porn star chick who's like, I mean, I don't know if you know anything about the movie, but all these people worship different directors. So, and that they're all like lovers of art cinema and things like that. But she does porn, her character in the movie.
Keep eating, you fuckers!
Didn't you produce that bad Hollywood remake of that beautiful foreign language film?
I had to. You know American audiences won't watch subtitles.
Didn't you just greenlight another movie based on a video game?
It wasn't my idea. I'm just the vice president of creative affairs. No, please don't shoot me. I don't even go to the movies. Run!
And yeah, there's some really weird stuff in that movie too.
Funny.
Yeah, you're behind in John Waters. You know?
I know, I really am. Yeah, and then he even he hosted a TV show.
He did on True Crime Cases, I think it was called.
But it was like a lovers' crime.
Yeah, I can't remember what that show was called now.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I remember seeing some intros that he would do, and he would just come on and kind of set up the
he would
the show and then have it go. And I can't remember the name of that either.
Till Death Do Us Part?
I'm thinking it's something like that. Yeah.
He kills her, she kills him. He kills her, she kills him. Ain't love grand?
But despite the fact that he was on it, oh, never? Yeah, it was just on really occasionally. I never knew when it was on TV. And
was it on Fox or something?
Probably. It sounds like something that Fox would do.
Yeah, no, I never saw that. But
yeah.
But he's been in so much like little cameo type things and things over the years too. I mean, he shows up in things.
What's he been doing like in the last few years?
Just engagements in the writing, obviously. I mean, he just put out a book not too long ago.
And you've read it.
Yeah, what was the last book called? I can't even remember now.
You just read it a couple of months ago.
Role Models? No. There's a newer one. Role Models is the second last one. He wrote the book about hitchhiking.
About hitchhiking,
yeah. He did a hitchhiking thing across America. And the book is divided into two portions. A fictional portion where he creates a scenario, what happened as he went from car to car hitchhiking. And that, needless to say, is just ridiculous. But then there's the real story about what really happened when he actually hitchhiked.
Oh.
Yeah, so the book is broken into two portions. The truth and the fiction.
Well, what really happened?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
He lived. Whereas in his fictional versions, a lot more weird stuff happens. Sex and violence and all sorts of things. But in the realistic one, he just got different rides here and there. And it was all relatively calm. No one tried to murder him. He didn't get raped. There was nothing like that, right?
Oh, that's
all
good.
the things he feared, but that he also fantasized about, because that's why he wrote that into the fictional thing. So.
Right.
But yeah, that was his second last book. And there's a newer book, and I just read it. And I can't remember the name of it.
Should I look it up?
Check it out. It's
okay, let's see.
Yeah, I do not recall. It's funny because it just came out in the last year.
Yeah.
And I got it and I read it, but
because you were talking to me about it. Let's see, Mr. Know-It-All?
That's it.
No.
Yeah, Mr. Know-It-All. That's the last one. And that's just a series of essays that pertain to issues going back to the beginning of his career. I mean, there's stuff in there back to the really early days, all the way up to the present, just different types of articles, and essays he wrote. But yeah, it's good. I like all his short writings. I mean, Crackpot is great for that. Shock Value is great for that. I mean, you've read some of those, right?
Yeah, I've read Shock Value, and I haven't read Crackpot.
Yeah,
Crackpot
was a collection of essays that had come from different places, because he was writing for other magazines too at that time, in the 80s. So there would be a piece in National Lampoon and a piece in Spin or Rolling Stone or whatever. He was doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
So that compiled all that.
Yeah, he writes very well. It's really fun stuff.
Yeah, no, he's a great writer, and so I guess he figures, well, if I can't get a movie made in this day and age, I can always write. He figures at least there's book companies that will still put out his stuff just because of his history. I guess at least the book companies are willing to say, okay, we'll release this for you, whereas the film studios are like, yeah, you're not going to make enough money for us.
Seems insane.
Yeah.
Especially now with so many specialty cable and streaming things.
He could probably get a movie made through Netflix. That's the thing, if he wanted to go down that path. Maybe he's just done with it. Maybe in his mind he's made enough movies, he's done with it.
Yeah.
And maybe all that crap he went through with Fruitcake just soured him on and said, screw it, I'm just going to write and do speaking engagements. And he's in his mid-70s now, so he's probably just thinking, do I want to go through the hassle of making another feature?
Probably not.
No, he's probably done with it. Because, I mean, Dirty Shame was 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Dirty Shame was like 2008. Something like that?
Something like that,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm not even sure anymore now. Like I said, I saw it at the Toronto Film Fest, but I don't remember what year that was. But yeah, it's been a while, and so it doesn't seem likely. It might have been 2006 even. It might have been like 13 years ago. So it doesn't seem likely that he's going to make another movie. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
no, he's definitely. And I mean, his whole crew of people were interesting, and very few of them are alive now, unfortunately.
That's true.
Yeah, there's a small amount. I mean, Mink is obviously probably the most functional in the sense that she seems to still do appearances and things, and will show up in something here and there. A lot of the other people, harder lives in some cases too. They either just disappeared or But most of the people he worked with in terms of his crews and things, they're still around and they're still talking.
Like behind the scenes type of
thing?
thing?
Yeah. Because a lot of times now on those current reissues from Criterion, there's interviews with a lot of those people like Pat Moran and Vincent Peranio and the people who did jobs on the set, makeup, set decoration and things like that. A lot of those people are still alive and they give interviews and talk about that. But a lot of the actors, not so much. Some of them have disappeared, and had other issues over the years. But, every so often some of them do show up on special features.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a knack for casting. I mean, even Tab Hunter.
Yeah.
Being able to get him to perform.
Yeah, well, that was a big coup for him at that time,
Yeah. I mean, to play against type.
Because that was the first time he brought somebody in.
He wasn't actually playing against type. He was playing in type, but...
Yeah, in some ways. He was playing like the macho male character, but in the context of the film, with Divine, it's a different thing, obviously.
All of a sudden it changes it pretty drastically.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the first real actor that had a career before John Waters in his movies, because think about that. Prior to that, everything up to that point was Desperate Living, and he'd only work with his own crew of people.
That's true.
And Polyester was the first time he brought different people in from without. And sadly, some of those people didn't really work ever again, like the woman who played the daughter.
Yeah.
Like, she was great. And
or even the boy, Stiv Bators is in there.
Stiv Bators is in it, yeah. Yeah, and he really didn't have any desire really to be an actor. I guess he was asked.
Because he was just wooed.
He was a musician. He was pulled into it. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, both the children, the son and the daughter, didn't really pursue acting in a big way after that. They kind of disappeared. It's too bad because I mean, the daughter was great.
She really was. Yeah. She had some of the best lines.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. With some of those great lines
like I'm having an abortion and I can't wait.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, she had some great scenes, punching herself in the stomach, sticking her head in the oven.
Yeah, ramming her belly into the corner of a table.
Yeah. And the son was great, the foot stomper, glue sniffing foot stomper.
That was based on a real guy, apparently, who was operating around the Baltimore area. Right?
Yeah.
He was a foot stomper, stomper fetishist.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is not to do with any of these characters. It's just a little, tiny little bit where the foot stomper is like stomping some feet by like a supermarket or whatever, and there's a newscast thing, and there's this little black kid, and he's like, yeah, this honky, the lady got her foot stomped on, or something to that effect, or whatever. He says something, this honky came in over and stomped on this other honky's feet. And it was like... it was just ridiculous.
Amazing.
Because that's the thing. Sometimes even just when he would cast just locals, just to do little things like that, to have a line, it would just be like he'd give these people this one great line, and that's all they'd have, but that's all they needed.
So great.
Yeah, and Mink Stoll's great in that movie too, with the Bo Derek corn rolls and everything. It's just ridiculous. And the guy who plays Divine's husband, he's amazing too. The porn guy with the porn theater, he's amazing too.
Yeah, I love the fact that there's constant protesters in front of their house.
Yeah, and he just goes up there and reads the films for the day.
He waves at them and smiles. And he presses good press.
And then to list the names of the film screening that day and the different times for it. He's great. Yeah.
Such a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Stiv Bators is great in it too. Just he's not in it a lot, but when he's in it, it's great.
Yeah, great as the boyfriend, right?
And he's got that great scene with Jean Hill too, where she's the bus. She throws the bus driver off the bus and then chases them down.
Oh, that's
right.
And
then throws him out of the car and like throws him around and everything too. And he actually said in an interview at one point that she was slapping the hell out of him for real. He said that, yeah, I mean, she's so big and he was so small that he said that she pulls him out of the car and she literally just did lift him out like that and started shaking him around like that. And he's like, man, he goes, this is not acting here. This woman is just like shaking the shit out of me. You know, she didn't know her own strength. I mean, look at her compared to him. She could have broken him in two, literally. You know, but yeah, Stiv's great in it too, and there's some great dialogue too.
We better be getting to the library.
You ain't going anywhere with this little lady, faggot.
I believe I had a date with her, Bobo.
Get lost, mother.
Mr. Fishpaw, when contacted by Channel 12 News, responded to the protesters.
I think that my theater helped stop rape.
Mrs. Fishpaw, however, refused to talk with reporters.
No! Oh, I've never been so humiliated.
Get up, Francine, you big oaf. I want some breakfast.
What time is it?
Time to get that fat ass out of bed. That's what time it is. I guess I'll have to fix my own cereal. How's my baby doing in school?
I learned all about my cervix in sex education class yesterday.
Let's celebrate.
That calls for a big lunch.
Yummy, yummy, yummy.
It's awful.
But I've discovered macrame. It's helped me find myself. I'm gentler now and more creative.
I'm an artist now too, Lulu. I'm off drugs and ready for a new beginning here at home.
Oh, you see, children, it's not hard to be normal. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you for answering my prayers. We're a real family again. A normal American family. Oh.
It's a fun movie all around, you know.
Yeah, there's a great introduction to John Waters.
Yeah, and the theme song, of course, is sung by Bill Murray.
Is it?
Yeah. That opening thing you hear at the beginning of the movie, Francine, and all that's Bill Murray.
Is it? Oh.
Yeah, they knew him because of Saturday Night Live, because of Debbie Harry and Chris Stein, who wrote the song, and knew him because of Saturday Night Live, New York crowd and all that. And they asked, apparently. They said they would ask they told John Waters they'll ask Bill Murray if he wants to come in and sing the song, because he was doing the lounge singer thing on Saturday Night Live at that time, right? And they want him to do that kind of singing, do that voice. So that's him. But also Tab Hunter sings the main theme song, Polyester, which was also written by Debbie Harry and Chris Stein. And they did a lot of the incidental music in it and everything too. And I think at some point you do hear Debbie Harry singing. There's some incidental music in the background with a female voice on it, and that's her. But they couldn't be credited apparently
because of contractual.
Yeah, I guess because of the record label and everything too, and otherwise they'd have to be paid for this, and it was just too much money. So they decided we'll just do it without any credit like that. But everybody knew that was the case, that they were involved in it. And they brought Bill Murray in, so that one part in the movie, I think you hear Bill Murray singing this thing of a Francine and doing all this kind of stuff.
That's cool.
And that's Bill Murray, so I don't think he's not credited either for that very reason.
No, because I don't remember. Yeah,
that's Bill Murray. If you were to watch it now and listen knowing that, you'd say, that's totally Bill Murray. You can tell. When you know that, you can tell, but otherwise, maybe you wouldn't think of it.
Oh, man.
And like I said, Tab Hunter does sing the main theme song, Polyester, which Debbie Harry and Chris Stein wrote. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, and then of course later on he would work with Debbie Harry, for Hairspray. And but she doesn't sing the theme song there. That's Rachel Sweet sings the theme song for Hairspray and a few other songs in the movie. Rachel Sweet sings every time you see the actress singing some of the things
that's
in the
her
movie.
Voice?
That's Rachel Sweet singing some of those songs. Yeah, there's a song called "Teenage Prayer." She sings. That's Rachel Sweet singing it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, he brought her in because he said he was always a fan of her. I mean, that's the thing. Like John Waters has always loved music of a lot of different types, so he always incorporates that into his movies. Like for instance, when he made Cecil B. Demented, he was interested in a lot of hip hop at that time, so he was bringing some acts like that in that you would not associate with him, that were current of that era. So I mean, he likes different types of things, he says. So over the years, he's had a variety of different types of sounds in his movies. So Sarah Mummy's got L7 playing, right, as the band Camel Toe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a music fan, obviously, and that's probably why he throws in little things like Rick Ocasek and Stiv Bators. Like, just throw these people in, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he was probably a fan of Tracy Ullman's songs, and that's probably why he got her too. He probably liked her stage performances or comedy, but he probably liked her singing too, because her stuff is very 60s girl group stuff. You think of her big hit, They Don't Know, and it's very much in that style. And so I think Waters is just a big music fan too. So
seems like it. Yeah.
You can tell by the soundtracks of his movies that he's into music. So that's another component that I think makes his movies really interesting too. Is the fact that he has interesting selections of musical taste. Like when you think of some of the songs that are in Hairspray and things like that, he pulls out some interesting, cool little R&B and soul songs that maybe some people wouldn't put in movies necessarily. Like The Roach and things like that, like 60s dance songs that had interesting themes, like Do the Roach and things like that. So, yeah. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, no, Waters is definitely an interesting character. He's a legend for good reason, obviously.
There's not a lot of these guys.
No.
Where not only do they do really recognizable, interesting, unusual things, but that they themselves are a product as well.
Especially when they come out of the underground, because usually you come out of the underground, you don't get too far removed from the underground for the most part. He was one of the few to make a real huge transition into the mainstream and still sort of keep some of his cred intact.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's also because of what he did beyond the movies. Like if he had just gone into mainstream movies but not continued with spoken word in the same style that he always did and in terms of the books and all that, then maybe people would have been like, oh man, this guy sold out. But you can tell that even if his movies some of them were a little more mainstream, that he was still the same person inside. You'd get that when you would read his writings or hear him speak. But his movies, sure, they were playing to a wider audience at one point. So didn't seem to hurt him though, really. People. I'm sure some people did turn on him. Some people probably thought, nah, these films are not like those early ones, and this is a whole different animal. And it is a whole different animal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing.
Well, they're different throughout. The first third of his career is vastly different than the second third and probably the third third, Each one getting more, I guess, mainstream. But they're still John Waters films.
Well, he made slightly more films in the mainstream era than he did in the underground era. A couple more films probably, I'd say. Yeah, definitely. You figure there's been maybe 7 films in the more mainstream era, starting off with Hairspray. Hairspray, Crybaby, Serial Mom, Pecker, Cecil B. Demented, Dirty Shame. 6 films. And he probably made 5
for the first
or 6 in the first half of his career. Starting with, if you want to include Monto Trasho, Multiple Maniacs, Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, Desperate Living, and Polyester, 6 films, right? So, yeah. So, like, you can divide his career into 2 stages. Some would say that arguably Polyester is sort of in between. It was like, it's not like the films that came before it, but it's not exactly Hairspray either. It's that middle ground.
But it has enough of the stuff of the films that came before it.
It's a little bit.
It's just glossier. It's like, to me, it's like the films that came before it, except with more money.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. That's the thing. It's a little bit of the 70s stuff, and it's a little bit of what's going to follow later in the 80s. It's definitely caught in between. And it is in between, even in terms of era. They left the 70s behind, so it's 1981, but he's still kind of got his foot in the 70s, but he's also kind of looking forward to 88 or 87. Is it 87 Hairspray? I think it was 87.
I think it was 87.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So a 6-year gap, or like a 4-year gap. I guess it was like 77 was probably Desperate Living. So there was a 4-year gap and then a 6-year gap. So, and that's pretty weird. That took 6 years to get another movie out. He'd had all these films coming, and now he'd made this movie that actually was a little more mainstream, but it still took 6 years to get the next one together. That's kind of bizarre. Because then after that, he was on a roll. They were sort of falling pretty fast. 90, 92, 94, 96, all the way through up to 2006 or whatever Dirty Shame was. But, yeah, he had a good career as a filmmaker.
It might not be over. But chances are
it's over. But, unless Netflix does dangle some huge carrot in front of him and say, we'll give you this much money and you can make whatever you want. And then maybe he will just come up with something. But, can't count him out yet, I guess. Anything's possible.
No, he's still quite active.
Netflix probably would be his best bet at this point in time, honestly, because I don't think a studio's going to give him anything at this point. So,
True.
But Netflix, yeah, that's possible. And if not, he'll probably continue on doing his writing and his appearances in public and all that. And
he seems pretty happy.
We got that. At least it's better than nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So any last words?
I guess I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess just go out and watch John Waters.
See John Waters movies if you haven't seen them.
Yeah, and I guess I got to catch up with the last, 3 or 4.
You should.
So I'll do that right now.
There you go. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for listening.
There you go.
And next time we're going to talk about something else.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
I'm John Waters, the Pope of Trash, as I have been so humbly called. The Prince of Puke, the Duke of Dirt, the Anal Ambassador. Yep, those are my royal titles. That's me. And you are lucky enough to be seeing tonight some of my most appalling films ever, and even a few that became shockingly mainstream. You'll even get to watch Divine Trash, the rarely screened documentary about one of my early trash epics. So get ready for an onslaught. The filthiest people alive, Divine, Mink Stole, Edith Massey, Odorama, where you can imagine the joyous stink of the on-screen tragic life of a suburban Baltimore alcoholic housewife. Experience the 60s gimmick dances, the roach and the bug in Hairspray, or the thrill of drinking your own tears in Crybaby, even eating you-know-what in Pink Flamingos. All right here in a respectable movie theater. Trash, filth, John Waters' family values. And after you have been joyously polluted with this hideous film education, I hope, no, demand that you come see my spoken word act, this filthy world, filthier and dirtier, when I play your fair city. And that's soon. You heard me. Live, in person. Yours truly, ready to turn your ears into garbage cans. Buy a ticket now, or I'll have you.
Thank you for listening. Music is played by Trigger Warning. Check out their Facebook page. Links are in the show notes. A Very Suspect podcast is copyright suspect video. All rights reserved. See you next week.
Into your words, I wonder why you think you're all alone. With my cynical